What's up, horror fans? Anchorpete here, and we are kicking off a special event for the Lastercast channel and the Anchorpete channel. We are talking about all of the Halloween movies in the Halloween franchise. And tonight on the Anchorpete channel, Shari T, that's my wife over here, and I are talking about the classic that started it all, Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween is one of my all-time favorite horror films. It's one of the first of what I call like the stalker horror films, and it's probably my favorite.
This movie came out in 1978, and obviously it made a whole subgenre of horror. And tonight we're going to talk about like where it kind of originated and why it has that kind of impact. If you think about it, there's a couple of movies that are precursors to Halloween. Like, for instance, there's Psycho by Alfred Hitchcock, right, in
You
1960.
consider that a precursor to Halloween?
It's not the exact same type of movie, but it has a lot of the elements.
It has her mom.
It has Jamie Lee Curtis's mom, Janet Leigh, yeah. But it also has a killer, right? That stabs at least one woman, but kills multiple people, right?
Yeah, the first well, I shouldn't say that because I was going to say the first kill in Halloween is almost an hour into the movie, whereas Janet Leigh's death in Psycho is like 45 minutes into the movie. But it's not. That's not exactly true because in Halloween he kills his sister right away.
Right, right.
Right.
Mhm.
But after that, you have to wait quite a while. So there's a little. They're both heavy on suspense. I'll give you that.
Yeah,
I think in spirit, maybe they're cousins.
yeah. Well, and besides that, like, okay, there's other little connections between Psycho and Halloween.
Okay.
Like, for instance, Marion Crane, right? That's Jamie Lee Curtis's mom, Janet Leigh,
She plays that character, yeah.
right? She plays that
In
character.
Psycho.
So her boyfriend, do you remember what her boyfriend's name is?
In Psycho?
Yeah,
No.
Sam Loomis.
Oh, okay. Did he get the name Loomis?
The character's name in Halloween is literally Sam Loomis.
Okay, well, you know what I thought?
What?
The actress who plays Annie in Halloween, her name is Nancy Loomis.
The actress's name. Right, right, right.
She's okay, yeah.
But
So I
but
kind of thought maybe that was they just used her name or something. I didn't know.
yeah, I didn't realize it, but yeah, Sam Loomis. It's a little homage, right? And then another Hitchcock homage is also Tommy Doyle. You know, the little boy that you like in this movie.
Yeah.
There's a detective Thomas Doyle in Rear Window.
Oh,
Yeah.
same name and everything. So
Yes.
John Carpenter, I assume, did that on purpose.
Yes. Yes. It's an homage. Absolutely.
Okay.
So another movie that
I bet he was really happy to get his hands on Jamie Lee Curtis then for this movie.
I think so. Well, another movie that like highly inspired Halloween was Black Christmas. Have you ever seen that one?
No.
So Black Christmas came out in 1974, and like everybody talked about it on the Laughtercast this one time when we were talking about horror, like Christmas kind of horror movies, right? And everyone loves this one from 1974. I've actually never seen it, but it's made by Bob Clark. And here's kind of a weird thing about that: he also made A Christmas Story. You know,
Hmm.
like he made Black Christmas, which is this like slasher Christmas movie, and he made A Christmas Story.
Oh, okay, yeah. I
And
jumped genres. Well, what does this movie Black Christmas have to do with Halloween?
I'm really glad you asked. Black Christmas is basically where this like sort of emotionless stalker killer just goes and takes out these sorority women.
Okay.
And so that was kind of an inspiration for John Carpenter. Regardless of all the components that went into making this movie, you know, it's undeniable that this movie has an amazing cultural impact. So tonight, a major portion of discussion is like, why? Why is this movie so important? So go ahead, tell us why.
John Carpenter's score, for one, is
Hmm.
really wonderful. And that is another similarity to Psycho, which also has an amazing score.
Hmm.
You know, the knife stabbing,
Hmm.
which is Bernard Herrmann.
Hmm.
Anyway, that score is really great and it's very memorable. And he kind of like throws it throughout the movie in little pieces when you see something. A lot of the jump scares in this movie come from just the music coming on at a certain moment,
Yeah.
which I don't know if that's common. Usually, a jump scare is something popping out at you.
Yeah.
So for just the music to like kind of cause you to start, I think is kind of cool. And I don't know how frequently that happened before this movie. We get Jamie Lee Curtis's freshman appearance, right? This is her first role,
Hmm.
and she's iconic right away. I think it's funny that Donald Pleasance gets top billing, like even before the title of the movie, because yeah, he's fine, and I guess he's a good actor and everything, but like he's not the one we're all remembering when we're finished watching this movie. I personally really enjoy PJ Souls in this movie. So I'm just going on about like the performances, but it's also the pacing and the suspense. and the idea that this could actually happen to someone. I don't know if there's that many people like Michael Myers out there that are just emotionless, soulless, just with this urge to kill, and that's it. However, we all could have someone try to break into our house and harm us. So that is a genuinely scary thing. And I really like this movie as is, standalone. Just the fact that it's on Halloween. I like you said, the bare bones. I really love the opening with the music and just the freaking jack-o'-lantern sitting there burning.
Hmm.
I like the neighborhood they filmed in. I like how quiet it kind of is. I like how long it takes kind of for something to happen, because the whole time you're dreading and you think so many times he's going to pop out and get one of these girls, and he doesn't. It takes quite a while for him to get around to it,
To get to
and
Annie.
you're kind of scared. Yeah, Annie takes forever when she's locked up in the washer dryer room,
Yeah,
the laundry
your
room.
laundry room.
You're like, I can't believe you didn't get her at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they keep you hanging.
Like the producers that brought the idea to John Carpenter, they they um they wanted him to make a movie where there's a killer killing like sorority age girls, right? And so Deborah Hill and John Carpenter wrote a script that was called The Babysitter Murders.
Hmm.
But then one of the producers says, let's name it Halloween and let's set it on Halloween. And then once they said that, Deborah Hill and John Carpenter really went all in, and they really wanted to get that kind of Halloween vibe. And this movie is just oozing it, because just besides like the haunt feeling, there's also like this feeling of the season, right? She's carrying a jack-o'-lantern at one point. Tommy Doyle's carrying a jack-o'-lantern at one, or a pumpkin at one point. He
Yeah, and
falls.
it's clearly fall. I like the autumn thing. I was
Yeah,
noticing that throughout the whole movie, like the way the wind's blowing and the way
yeah,
the like leaves are falling. I actually look for that feeling myself personally for
yeah.
Halloween every year. And there will be evenings like, in fall where it's not Halloween, but I'll say it feels like Halloween because the weather's like that. And this movie really gives you that. I really love like the lighting coming inside houses when the lights are off, and that
Yeah.
happens a lot when she's dodging
Oh
him at
my
the end.
God.
Like how there's no lights on in that bedroom.
Yes.
However, all the light coming in from the street
Yep.
is so great. The shadows.
Yes.
I think that's part of what makes this so good.
There are many, many shots in this movie where you're in a room where there's no internal lights, but you're getting lights from outside. And that, yeah, you're right. They're absolutely beautiful. Like there aren't many like stylized shots in this movie besides sort of seeing things from Michael's perspective.
Hmm.
And the very beginning, you have his perspective as a little kid, and he goes through the whole house. It's like this big long tracking shot.
Yeah.
But just in general,
And even his view changes when he
he
puts
puts
on
on
the
the
mask.
mask.
Yes,
That's so
yes.
fantastic. But the cinematography for this movie is just like off the hook. There's so many shots where it's just like Laurie, and she's in the center of the frame, and she's just in a neighborhood, just walking in a neighborhood, and it just looks so freaking beautiful. Like her neighborhood's beautiful to begin with, but the way they frame the shot, it's just the lighting, everything. It's like great to look at. It's a beautiful freaking movie.
Yeah, I actually really like the shots they did. They do this one shot of the house across the street from Lori,
Yeah,
where Annie's babysitting. They do a shot of that house a million times, and I
right.
just love looking at that house. Like it's iconic.
Right. And like
And
there's
sometimes Michael's
right.
walking by.
Michael's
Sometimes Annie's running by.
right.
There's like so many people that go around that house, and you can kind of tell a lot of the story happening just by people running around that house.
Yeah, and at one point, Tommy Doyle looks out, and Michael's carrying Annie's body into the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so perfect. And one other thing I really liked about that particular sequence is that like Michael's carrying Annie inside, and they have the Creature-rama kind of show going on
The
the
Thing.
TV. Well, The Thing was one of the movies, but I think they cut to another movie by that point.
Okay.
And so you just have the dialogue from this old like 1950s horror movie playing while he's carrying her body. It's so good. It's so good.
I also want to point out like that this is kind of an interesting, like where luck is on his side. Like luck is on the killer side, and I think there's a series of movies like this where he's doing a lot of things in broad daylight and no one notices or catches him.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what the movie has to rely on that. And I think it's sort of a flaw. Like
Yeah. Well,
it makes you roll your eyes a little bit, like you're doing this in broad daylight, or you're walking right in front of the house carrying this body and no one notices.
I think we should talk about the flaws. And here's the thing, right? Obviously, this movie came out in 1978, so it's over 40 years at this point, right?
Mhm.
Old. So, it's easy to poke fun at a movie that's over 40 years old. But you gotta say to yourself, like, it is kind of ridiculous. Some of the
That's what I'm saying. Luck was on his side, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like to me, okay. So I'm sure that people have complained about this multiple times in YouTube videos, but like just the fact that he was 6 years old when he was institutionalized, and yet he drives a car like an undercover police detective. Like that's probably the biggest thing for me.
I do feel like we don't know what he's been doing
Right.
all these years.
Right.
Maybe he did learn to drive. It
At the
seems
mental
it
institution?
seems extremely unlikely, but maybe there's a backstory there. Maybe someone should do a prequel to Halloween. I mean, how come that hasn't? And all the 11 sequels, no one's wanted to do a prequel to kind of see what Michael Myers' life was like.
I think in the Rob Zombie one, they do show a little bit of backstory stuff. I haven't seen it.
I can tell you in Halloween 2, they show some backstory stuff. They actually show him in the mental institution being talked to.
Okay. Okay.
But there's not a whole lot there to build on, and they certainly don't show him learning to drive a car.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe they do show them as like some kind of rehabilitation process, right? They're like, when you do leave, you will be able to drive a car.
Yeah.
But yet, Loomis has always said that like Michael has never been someone you could like talk to, and he's just always been staring and dark, right?
Right. You
So
couldn't reach him.
okay, so I remember that just kind of being like, okay, well, he has been in the mental institution his entire life. How is he able to drive? But one thing on this viewing that really stood out was there's a fucking seal on the side of the car that like is from the nurse's car that she had. And so anyone can see this fucking thing as he's driving around town multiple times stalking Laurie Strode.
Yeah, I'm thinking, why did they put out an APB on this missing vehicle so that they could locate the runaway mental patient?
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe they didn't have APBs back then. I don't
I think
know.
they did.
I don't. I know it seems like they would have, but they weren't ever even looking for the car. And there's a couple of scenes in the movie where the car's right there.
That's the worst part, honestly, is when you just cut to Loomis seeing the car and he's like, oh, there's the car.
Meanwhile, he's been camped out
Yeah.
in front of the old Myers place
Yeah,
for
yeah,
hours or
yeah.
something and didn't notice it.
Yeah,
Till now.
that's probably the roughest part. In pretty much every timeline, Laurie Strode is super important, and Jamie Lee Curtis coming back into the franchise is always a big deal. She comes back in H2O. She comes back in this Halloween 2018, right? In the Rob Zombie one, Laurie Strode is a main character, right?
Is
Obviously,
it Jamie Lee Curtis?
Jamie Lee Curtis is not in those. No, it because the Rob Zombie one is like a complete reboot where it's just like starting over again, right? But Laurie Strode is super, super important to this franchise. She's almost like the Ripley, right? And she's before Ripley,
Mhm.
right? Because she, 1978.
I was thinking the ultimate final girl. Like
Right.
she's the first final girl I can really think of who like checks all those boxes, the kind of boxes that they made Scream to make fun of.
Man, am I really glad that you brought up Scream too? Because sometimes when I have flashbacks about Halloween, it's literally just the people in Scream watching Halloween.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they watch Halloween. That's such a big part of the final act of Scream too. I kept thinking about that while I was watching this too. And because I got to admit that like Halloween's not my favorite horror franchise. I like Freddy more, I like Jason more, and I like Scream more than all of them.
Do you like Jason better than Michael Myers?
Okay, I'm so glad.
It's a very similar,
Okay,
but to me less interesting
right.
killer.
I am so glad you brought that up too,
Mhm.
because Jason and Michael Myers are very very similar, like you said, but a lot of times Jason just has this like one real quick kind of kill that he does, right? He'll just cut someone's head off. He'll stab them with something, right? Michael Myers, even in this movie, he like fucks you up first and then kills you, right? He like grapples with Annie in the car. He's just like strangling her with one hand, right?
It's like extending the kill. It's just
Right.
that much more horrible
Right.
to see the person struggling.
Right. And in that 2018 Halloween that I want you to see,
Mhm.
it's that same kind of thing where he kind of like brutalizes people first and then he kills them. It's a distinction between Jason. It's like worse to be caught by Michael Myers than Jason.
Yeah, there's some shots in Halloween that are iconic to me, and two of them
Yeah.
are when he gets the dog. You don't see what he's doing to the dog, you can imagine, because they have this like terrible. I mean, when someone kills the dog, it's rough.
Yeah.
They have this terrible shot of the dog's legs like slowly
Yeah,
collapsing.
yeah.
And I've always wondered how they got the dog to kind of like slowly go limp like that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping no animals were harmed in the
Right,
making of this movie.
Right. Right.
but it's very realistic the way the dog's legs just like kind of slowly,
Yeah.
show that he's dying. And there's a similar shot for Bob when he kills Bob.
Right. His toes.
Yeah, his toes are like, and they kind of die.
Right. Right.
And I feel like you see that kind of stuff in horror movies all the time now, but this was probably sort of original, or sort of new back then. And those shots always stick with me because they're horrific. They give you too much of a peek of what it would be like and leave you thinking about it and having nightmares about it.
Right. Well, that Bob sequence and I guess the dog sequence too kind of highlight another thing that is so scary about Michael, which is that he's like ridiculously strong, right? Because he lifts up Bob, right, with like one hand essentially, and then he stabs him. And that's kind of a signature move with Michael Myers, is kind of stabbing someone and holding them up with the knife. And that's the scene that is also kind of far-fetched because Bob is impaled, but just by a butcher knife.
Right.
Like that,
I know. And his body doesn't sag. It's just right.
Went off on a little tangent there. I was talking about other horror franchises and how I don't like this one as much as other franchises. But Jamie Lee Curtis does a fantastic job in this movie. And I think she does a great job as the final girl. She has all those qualities, right? Those final girl qualities. There's that one sequence in the very beginning where she's in class and she kind of zones out because she's thinking about Michael, like she sees Michael outside.
Yeah.
But then she gives this like profound answer.
Right. She doesn't think twice about it. She knows the answer. She can pay attention only 25% and still be able to answer no problem. And she mentions that she doesn't have a date. Boys don't like her because she's too smart.
Right. She does say that. But then she's interested in that one guy, and Annie says that she's gonna set him up together. That never happens.
Annie's a bitch. I mean, is there anyone like? Didn't you enjoy seeing her go down? I mean, I think she's a terrible friend.
Really?
She's a frenemy, is what Annie is. Yes, she is not someone you really want as your friend.
I think
she degrades her. She insults her. She makes fun of her. She gaslights her. She dumps a kid on her. She takes full advantage of Laurie, and then also, like when Laurie tells her a secret, she blabs it immediately and embarrasses her. No, that's not what you want in a friend. And she can say she's doing it to like be helpful, and she's not though.
Oh man,
she's just really into humiliating Laurie, I think.
So how is she gaslighting her? Tell me.
She tells her constantly, "Oh, you're imagining things."
Oh, okay.
She tells her that all the time. Yeah. Laurie's not imagining anything. There's a fucking killer on the loose that's stalking her.
And she does that weird thing where she like calls and she's like chewing, right?
She's rude on top of it all.
Yeah,
she's rude and obnoxious on top of it all.
Yeah,
she's rude to her own father.
Yeah, who would call someone while they're chewing something? And
I mean, I think it could be kind of funny, but coupled with all of her other characteristics and all the other things she says and does, I think she's pretty awful. And you see Laurie with the little boy she's babysitting, and it's all sweet, and she's this good babysitter, and she's kind, and she's like, let's carve a pumpkin, and when he's scared, she soothes him and talks to him about it. With the little girl, Annie's just like, I don't care less what you're doing. Go sit in front of the TV.
Yeah, right. Well, she calls it to the little girl when she gets like stuck in the
when she wants help with something, or when she wants the dog to go away. That's the only time you see her interact. She doesn't care about the child.
I actually got more annoyed by Linda. I didn't like that she said totally all the time. That totally got on my nerves.
I think that's just like kind of that actress.
Right.
That actress is PJ Souls. Yeah. Who is iconic in her own right, because she was in Carrie, she's in this, she goes on to star in Rock and Roll High School, which is Robert Corman film.
Roger Corman
film, which has all the Ramones in it, and we should watch it sometime just because it's a lot of fun.
Sure.
Anyway, so I think she makes quite an impression. Yes, she's annoying, but at least she's not as mean as Annie is. Annie gets more screen time and she's really mean. I have a real problem with her.
Yeah.
And I like I said, I kind of enjoyed her kill.
You were talking before about like how our daughter isn't necessarily ready to see it. There's not a lot of like gore with his knife. I mean, yes, he does stab.
It's not a blood splatter.
No. I mean, even when he like slices Annie's throat, like you were kind of like, what did he do?
Yeah, because it was blood.
Yeah, it's so quick. Yeah. But I think that what would probably disturb our daughter more is just like when he's like choking people and strangling people.
Yeah, and just the fear factor, like the suspense. Suspense is a thing, like it affects you physically. You feel afraid. That's what he does to a person. That's what he inspires in a person, is to make you feel afraid about what's to come.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the end, right?
Okay.
So in the end, there's multiple times where he corners Laurie and then she like stabs him multiple times, but each time she leaves the knife on the floor near him.
I don't think she ever stabs him with a knife either. There's a knitting needle. There's
She
a coat
does.
hanger. Does she get him with a
She
knife?
stabs him with a knife in the closet because she gets the coat hanger first. He drops the knife and then she stabs him with the knife.
Okay. Okay.
Right, and he does that iconic thing where he like sits up like that and like he's like a robot where he looks at her, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought personally my favorite thing with Michael was when it was right before that scene where she's standing by the empty room and it's just this dark room and then his mask is like you can just see it subtly and then it becomes more in focus. Oh, that's so good.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Yeah, it's classic.
But what is so great about the ending of this movie, because John Carpenter movies tend to have very fantastic final shots, final scenes, right?
Mm.
And this one is so good because Loomis shoots him, he falls into the yard, his body's there in the yard. Then Loomis looks down, and there's the end dialogue, which is so good too. You know, where Laurie's like, "He really was the boogeyman," and then Loomis says, "Like, I believe he was," or something like that, right?
She says, "Was it the boogeyman?" And he's like, "It was." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then he's not there and he just hears breathing. And then there's all these shots of places where Michael could be. And finally going right back to his house where it all began. And I just think that's so well done.
Yeah. It is. It is. It gave me chills. Actually, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I haven't seen this movie maybe in 10 years or something, and
Yeah.
I don't remember that that end sequence where they just show all the different rooms with the music playing and his breathing. It's so creepy, and
Hmm.
I have to think about what that kind of does to me or what they're trying to do there. You say it's just to imagine he was here. He was here. He was here.
No, he could be
Oh
here.
God,
He
yeah,
could
because
be
he was
there.
missing again.
Right.
Okay, yeah, maybe so.
Right.
All these different places. Yes, it's very good though, and unique.
Yes.
It's not usually something. It's kind of a thoughtful thing to put at the end, I think.
Right. Because John Carpenter, when he was making this with Deborah Hill, he wanted to capture that haunted house feeling. And he said that every neighborhood has a haunted house. Every neighborhood has a house story where it's like, oh, someone was murdered here and
Mhm.
now it's haunted. And that's the Myers house, right? And they were talking about how obviously when he gets shot like that and he falls off the balcony, a regular person would be dead, right? But it's Michael, and so there's never an explanation of why he has these supernatural powers. It's just you assume it because he's not there to begin with.
Well, they talk all throughout the movie about a boogeyman.
Right. And
And
Loomis says he's evil multiple times. He's like pure evil.
yeah, and to me a boogeyman is like a mythical thing. It's not a real thing, and therefore they could be a creature that doesn't die,
Yeah.
at least not in the human way.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing that we both noticed that it was kind of weird when Dr. Loomis goes back to Michael Myers' house with the cop
Yeah.
and they're looking around and apparently there's a dead dog and this is kind of interesting. They don't show the dog or anything.
Right. Right. It's
But they're
implied.
like, he must have gotten hungry.
Right. Right.
I thought that was very weird. Like that Michael Myers came to the house, killed a dog, brought a dog there or something, and started eating it.
Yeah.
That was what was implied, right?
Well, so yeah,
I
I mean,
just kind of wish they'd cut that because it's too weird and strange. And
no, but the
Michael goes to the trouble of robbing a hardware store, but he can't rob a grocery store and get some
yeah,
food.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, you just needed a dog, you know.
What?
But the weirdest part about that whole sequence is that they say, or it could have been a skunk, and it's like, are they saying that that's not a dog on the ground? It could be a skunk, or are they implying that skunk ate part of the dog? That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then another weird thing in that whole sequence is that, like you were saying, it looked like a drain pipe, but something just randomly hits the window. It looked,
Shatters it.
yeah,
Perfect
yeah,
timing.
right, right. And
That's
it's
a
like,
jump
did
scare, I
Michael
think.
set that? Yeah, I mean, obviously it's just to startle the audience, right? But it's like, did Michael set that up? It's just random coincidence that this thing hits the house. It looks kind of like a doorknob, like the piece of a doorknob, right? But you said it might have been a gutter. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's definitely B movie elements, that weren't thought through in this movie, but there's, again, like the things that sustain that are better and bigger than the B movie elements that we all like love.
Yeah. I mean, like we can make fun of parts of this movie, but ultimately, it's over 40 years old. It's scary as hell. If we showed this to our daughter,
Nightmares.
she would have nightmares, and she would look at horror in a different way. She's like, "Oh, I see Stranger Things. I'm ready for horror. Bring it on." This would change her perspective.
Yeah, I just want to say I don't get scared that easily. I see lots of horror movies and they don't really scare me,
Mhm.
although I enjoy them. this is the kind of movie that does scare me because it makes me worried about walking around in my own house and who's going to pop out.
Yeah.
Like I said, it could actually happen.
Oh yeah. Can't wait to go to bed in a couple minutes now after we film this.
I can't wait to sleep next to you.
Oh yeah, I'll probably have some
Pete
creeps.
gets nightmares.
I do. Night terrors. So anyway, guys, that's it for Shari T and me discussing Halloween from 1978. This is on the Anchor Pete channel, but the majority of our Halloween discussions are going to be on the Lacercast channel. Danny and his daughter are going to talk about Halloween 2. And then just throughout the month, we're going to have a couple of special guests, and we're going to be talking about the entire franchise, including the Halloween Kills movie, which is coming out on, I believe, October 15th. So if you haven't liked and subscribed to the Anchor Pete channel, come on, we're ready. We have talks like this every week, right? But besides that, make sure you go over to the Lacercast channel and subscribe so you get all this Halloween content. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And Shari and I will see you guys next time.
Good night.